All right, yo, welcome back. It's season 2.
Season 2.
Paper Beats Rock.
Paper Beats Rock, yes. There we go.
Welcome back to Dr. D's Discussions.
Unrehearsed.
Yeah, right. It's all live, so you obviously know that. You can tell that. So episode 1 of season 2 is genetically modified organisms, or GMOs.
GMOs.
You know, they're poisonous. They're going to kill you. They're going to destroy all of mankind, and apparently the ecosystem is going to just blow up. Nah, it's if you believe all the misinformation out there. That
I actually have cancer right now from GMOs. It's horrible.
It's just radiating. I think it's going to jump from you to me. Isn't that how cancer works?
Yeah.
So, as you can tell, I'm Dave Deming, and this is my co-host, Lebaron and and we're going to, a little change up this season, huh? All right.
It's the subtle greetings.
So we're going to basically go through why GMOs do not do any of the things that I just said that they do. So, hopefully, by the end of this, we'll be a little bit more educated about what GMOs are, how they work, what they're actually used for in terms of, science, investigative experiments and different things like that, how they're grown, how they're used agriculturally, how they're used in a plethora of fields, basically. So we're going to go and we're going to examine all those things in not intricate detail, but we're going to give you as much detail as possible so that we can start.
Which we can do in about 45 to an hour. Situate the essential facts about what genetically modified organisms are, what type of risk they have, what the World Health Organization has said about them, what the CDC has said, and what have numerous scientific organizations have said about GMOs.
And then at the end of it, with our PowerPoint presentation and on our Facebook pages and our Instagrams, we're going to actually give you a list of different resources that actually state definitively that GMOs are not bad for you, the environment, or anything in particular. So
I think most importantly, our health is really what people are concerned with, and as far as food safety in general.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I honestly think that some people are concerned about the ecosystem and if it's going to ravage it or whatever. But so, Lee, what is a GMO?
So a GMO stands for genetically modified organism. Pretty much the GMOs that we know of that this conversation is really about the genetically modified organisms that scientists modulate in the lab. Pretty much the only difference between today's GMOs and GMOs of the past is that
by
anything that a farmer has ever created pretty much has been selected for through
broccoli,
breeding.
Cauliflower, I don't know, corn.
Yeah, I mean, today's chickens, the broiler chicken is not the chicken it was, 100 years ago.
Yeah,
but yeah, so genetically modified organisms are something that we have taken a plant, crop, or animal and pretty much have modified its genetic information for it to have some type of selective breeding advantage, either resistance to a pesticide, herbicide,
grows faster,
resistance to a virus. Meat. Yeah, and some aspect of that.
And actually, I think growing bigger chickens, bigger chicken breast, all that, it all goes under genetically modified organisms.
So there might be some argument over this, but so today's chickens have been selectively bred to be this size. Mm-hmm. So they're not transgenic animals, and I say this word transgenic, meaning that they contain genetic information for a protein that is not normally coded within its species.
However, it is genetically modified because you look for a mutation that says, it grows faster, it grows quicker, and it grows plumper. It actually has less fat. It's more lean meat, or it has tastier meat. All that type of thing, I think, is genetically modified. It's just that we've accelerated the process from a 100-year span where you're going from small chicken to big chicken, or a 1,000-year span where you're going from grass, where corn is actually a grass. And now you're getting a big yielded crop that has a big ear. It's yellow or sweet or whatever. And, that's genetically modifying.
So people in the science community may have some I would actually categorize all these things as genetic modifications, but just from the perspective of the layperson or the normal or the consumer, I think that for them, the definition is something that has specifically been engineered in the laboratory, not within the process of selective breeding.
Fair, but at the same time, the ends are exactly the same, in my opinion.
That's true.
So, you're going to have something that's resistant to a disease, or you're going to have something that grows faster, or you're going to have something that's not natural.
It's like seedless watermelons, by the way, which are not genetically modified in a laboratory. You can actually make seedless watermelons by breeding together two polyploid fruits, meaning that they have extra sets of chromosomes. When they produce offspring, a part of them just don't have seeds. And this is no science involved. You can actually get fruit from a farmer's market and do this yourself. But yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of these things, I don't know. I think people get hung up on the fact that it's made in a lab.
That's really what it is.
Really what it is,
Because big farmers out to kill you.
Or no, big agriculture.
Big, Bayer, Monsanto,
all of it, But I do have qualms about Monsanto's business practices with seeds and selling to farmers. So I'm not necessarily yay Monsanto. I don't
think that any one. So this conversation isn't about those companies. This conversation is about the technology. And I think a lot of the times people get caught up in this Monsanto's evil, Syngenta is evil, big corporations. It's not really about these corporations. It's like saying, hey, Staples are bad.
So I shouldn't buy
Staples. So I shouldn't, from Staples, Office Max.
Oh,
it's not about the company. We're talking about the technology here.
So big office supplies.
Right. It's big office supplies in general. And that seems to be the qualm in a lot of things here. Some companies may have aggressive business practices that you may very well disagree with. Whether or not the technology is safe, though, isn't a question of opinion. It's a question of science.
Yeah. And, I think that the science is pretty sound. That we've had genetically modified organisms on the market since 1990, with soy. The big thing, though, is, let's dive into the science a little bit. Let's go with.
So wait, somebody posted a question that says, how can we be sure that GMOs don't affect humans negatively? Well, it's an interesting question, right? How can we be sure about that? Can we be 100% sure about anything at all? That's up for debate within itself. But just to pose that question, we do clinical studies. We do animal testing. GMOs have been pretty much integrated since the early 1990s. And no testable method that humans have come up with today as far as toxicity and negative impacts as far as health is concerned has been associated with consuming genetically modified crops.
You don't get an increased prevalence of cancer. You don't get an increased prevalence of diabetes. You don't get an increased prevalence of any type of disease that can be traced to GMOs.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean 100% that they don't cause that, but it's like saying, does red meat cause cancer? No. Well, in my opinion, it may increase your statistical chance of
here's an interesting thing.
And that's how people manipulate that phrase. And they're like, oh, well, red meat causes cancer. No, it doesn't cause cancer. It's not like you're going to rub yourself with a bunch of red meat. All of a sudden, you're going to have melanoma coming out of your face.
So it's an interesting concept, right? Because the World Health Organization describes things as being carcinogenic in potential and whether or not those things increase your cancer risk. So does bacon actually give you cancer? No. But if you have it increase, so let's just point some things out. Alcohol, which by the World Health Organization is a carcinogen, meaning that if you consume it, it has the potential to give you cancer. Why is this? It's based on its molecular mechanism. It's well defined. The reality is that whether something can cause cancer and whether something actually poses a risk to you are two very different questions. If you pour enough of any substance on any group of cells, or if you dose something high enough in any animal, there's a strong possibility that that substance may be carcinogenic.
Or will kill you.
Or either way.
I think the phrase comes back to is the dose makes the poison.
The dose does make the poison. And as far as red meat is concerned, like the American Medical Association and multiple associations, health associations around the world, including the United States, will tell you that the benefits from consuming iron and protein levels associated with eating red meat are not worth the risk associated with consuming moderate amounts of red meat in your diet. So if you eat burgers every day and you're 45% body fat, are you going to have an increased cancer risk? Yes, because you're obese and because red meat does seem to have an increased risk associated with colon cancer specifically from 7 to 8%. Technically, that's a 16% increase. but it's only from 7 to 8% in total cancer risk, which I think should be put out there because people hear 18 or 16 to 18% increase and like, oh my God, that's such a large number. Actually, it's relatively small when you're talking about total cancer risk. But whatever that means, though.
But let's digress a little bit. There is no link between GMOs and cancer increase in risk.
Right. As far as genetically modified crops, yes, there is no. Even though the World Health Organization has put out there that said that has linked glyphosate, which is one of the things that genetically modified crops are made to be resistant against, has been labeled as a probable carcinogen.
However, there's a lot of there's back and forth between that. So the European Safety Board, I forget the name. It's the equivalent of the FDA or in the USDA. They went back and forth, 3 different studies. It does, it doesn't, it does, it doesn't. But I think it's landed on that it doesn't.
Well, so what the European Union says, as far as their safety commissioner says, is that in the World Health Organization, a different department that is associated with rating the riskiness of compounds has said that your risk from consuming glyphosate and getting cancer from it is relatively non-existent because of the amount of glyphosate associated with the foods you eat. Now, if you were to go and drink a bottle of Roundup every day for the rest of your days, it's possible that you may get cancer. No human being is doing that.
I don't think you should drink Roundup.
I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should do any of that. But this is the reason why we're saying the dose makes the poison. Exactly. If you drink a liter of alcohol every day for the next 10 years, you're probably going to get cancer.
Yeah, it's true.
You probably are going to get cancer.
However, I don't believe that, and I don't even believe there's no definitive evidence that says that GMOs cause cancer or
GMOs as a whole. Yes. Do virus-resistant papaya cause cancer? There's not a single study that says that that's the case.
And there are multiple studies. There's case studies. Cornell actually did a case study, socially and physically. So basically, they went around asking people about their perceptions of papaya, and they're like, "So what do you feel about it?" Scientist after scientist after scientist who's actually studied and worked in the field and published peer-reviewed journal articles, and we'll get into papaya a little bit later. No, there's no risk associated with eating genetically modified papaya. However, people like random Joe Schmo off the street, construction worker, oh yeah, I wouldn't eat genetically modified papaya. It's bad for you.
I mean, no, not to take a dig at Joe Schmo off the street, who's a construction worker, who I'm sure is very well educated in the art of construction.
Okay, put it this way. I'm not going to go build a house because, I know how to build a house. I go to Joe Schmo to build a house. But when it comes to science or expertise, there's been a definite digression of believing the experts in anything. Because, I saw it on Google. Jenny McCarthy told me that vaccines cause autism.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing, too, where it's mostly about the narrative associated with big companies. This is all part with vaccines and GMOs being made by big companies or whatever the case may be. Actually,
big round Earth.
NASA's conspiracy for flat Earth. I mean, this is all kind of associated, lumped into the same pool where it's just like we just don't believe people that have dedicated themselves in the field. Now, don't get me wrong. That's appeal to authority. I'm not believing somebody just because they have a PhD. I'm going to believe the entire body of work associated on this topic. And the consensus says when you look at large meta-analysis studies that incorporate hundreds of thousands of farm animals.
Define a meta-analysis.
A meta-analysis is
a study of
a group of studies. Yeah. Yes. So if one study has a positive remark and another study has a negative, you pull all those studies together, do a large statistical analysis, and see if there's any correlations associated with those studies and look for general trends. If you pull these studies together that incorporate hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of farm and livestock, there is no association with increased risk of any type of disease associated with just eating crops. Don't get me wrong. High fructose corn syrup is predominantly produced by genetically engineered crops. Is that a problem? It's a problem if you're fat as fuck.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to cause diabetes because you're eating and consuming a high amount of sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that it's genetically modified. No. I think you could, if you just
ate the genetically modified corn without the making it in.
I mean, like if you want to eat organic mango ice cream 5 times a day and then not exercise, you're gonna have diabetes. Yeah. It's gonna be organic diabetes. Like I think this is like a misconception associated with things being natural and it being better for you. That's not necessarily the case. So somebody asked, Can someone eat a strictly GMO diet and be fine? Yes.
Yes.
If the fact that it is genetically modified is not harmful to you.
The majority of Americans do eat a predominantly genetically modified diet, because most things that you have in the United States are genetically modified corn and genetically modified soy. And
Right.
I think actually,
a lot of processed foods have sugar derived and protein derived from soy and sugar derived from corn. Whether or not processed foods are good for you has to do with the amount of stuff that you're intaking, but more importantly, it's not what you're consuming, it's how much of it that you're consuming. Somebody asked about GMOs in the environment. Of course, the monarch butterfly comes to mind from the early 90s, associated with genetically engineered corn producing Bt toxin. Bt toxin is actually something that's produced by bacteria. It's actually an approved organic pesticide that organic farms actually spray on their crops. By the way, organic farms do use pesticides.
Yes, they do. They actually use them in higher amounts.
Because they're ineffective?
And they use, yes, exactly. So they're not necessarily the better pesticide. They're just using more of it to block, or kill whatever insect or whatever.
Right. So recent studies shown, as far as looking at monarch butterflies and GMO crops, show that their population has rebounded, and more importantly, the cause of some of these effects has to do with the way that these farms are managed, and not so just the sheer existence of these things. There's a fear that biodiversity will be decreased associated with GMO crops.
However, biodiversity is also being decreased by us selectively breeding certain crops.
Right. So monoculture, meaning that you have an acre and you decide to grow one crop on it, that decreases biodiversity, no matter whether it's organic or genetically modified. This is a farming practice that has nothing to do with technology.
Conventional farming that doesn't use GMOs,
right,
that aren't organic farms but don't use GMO crops.
Right.
Now, so we're getting into like the big picture here, and I like that.
Right.
But let's take a step back and say, what is a GMO? So all the GMO is you genetically modify a plant, an animal, whatever species it is, with a trait that you want, a desired trait. So you take whatever DNA, say you want plumper tomatoes. You take something from a green pepper or a red pepper. You take that gene that makes the skin a little thicker, a little harder, a little firmer, and you insert it into a small group of cells that get inserted to a seed. And then you grow said seed. And there's actually two methods. And I didn't actually know that. There's a gene gun that shoots DNA-coated metal pellets.
Yeah. It's actually
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's actually a gene gun. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool.
So my GMO experience is predominantly with mice, rats, organisms that are used in the lab. Obviously, we're cancer researchers, so that's kind of like prevalence of mine.
Pretty much inject embryos with DNA and then grow them from there. But just to stick on the crop aspect of things, the other method for actually modifying crops is to use a bacteria.
Yeah.
So we give them the vector of choice that carry the gene that we want, say Bt toxin, for example. We use that bacteria to infect these plants. They then transfer that DNA there, and then we grow those plants up, and those crops express the gene of interest.
Basically, you make the bacteria have sex with the plants, and
sex is kind of like a weird word, but it's actually complicated. It's actually horizontal gene transfer, which is super rare from prokaryotes to eukaryotes. I won't get into the specifics of that. This is actually a function of this very specific bacteria, class of bacteria called argobacteria. But more importantly, right? So let's just narrow that down. Sorry to get off.
No worries.
Yeah. As far as if you eat a GMO fruit, how does that GMO fruit become harmful for you? Let's just talk about just simple basics of digestion. No matter what you eat, no matter what it is, where it comes from, once it gets into your stomach acid
burns it
the hell up.
It's got a pH level of 3.
It puts protons all over everything. DNA does not survive.
So put it this way: if you put stomach acid on your skin, bye skin.
Yeah,
it's gonna burn away. That's why you can eat pretty much anything. Now, if you're in a third world country, they're different, obviously, but there's bacteria that are designed to live in that. But for the most part, it's going to digest everything down to its basic components: proteins, carbs, lipids, and
then your small intestines, your pancreas actually dumps a bunch of enzymes called pancreatic enzymes into your small intestines that breaks down carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids. And you know what happens? Your small intestines absorbs those things, and then your body uses it. There has never been a case where a stretch of DNA has been incorporated into a into an animal or a person via ingestion. I don't know how that mechanism is supposed to happen.
So
we
basically,
researched it.
The Spider-Man hypothesis of GMOs being bad.
Right, radioactive spider bites human superpowers, or in our society's case, cancer. Yeah. Which that's just not how this. That's not how any of this works.
Geico. Fair, but behind us, there's a slide up right now. Selective breeding is a GMO. Advanced breeding, GMO. GM plant breeding. So basically what an advanced breeding is that you can actually splice on different, you can take a branch off of an apple tree that you really like, stick it onto another apple tree, and you make a hybrid, a chimera-type plant. So that's genetically modifying that organism.
Yeah, so, most bananas are actually hybrids.
Yeah.
That's why they don't have seeds, which I didn't know that.
Apples are hybrids as well.
Today's apples.
Yeah, today's apples, yep. Because back in the day when Johnny Appleseed was going around the country, he'd give you a bag of apple seeds. And apples weren't used for eating back then. They were actually used to ferment and make cider. Because that was one of the ways that you don't drink bad water. But, any of this is all breeding. Oh, no. Did we just lose it? Oh, no.
All right, so our PowerPoint took a poop.
That's all right. Hold on, I'm going to back up.
But, so speaking of apples, there's a genetically modified apple on the market. It's called an Arctic apple.
Or Honeycrisp.
It's a non-browning apple. You ever bite into an apple and leave it on your counter and it gets all brown, and you're like, hey, what the hell's going on?
You're going to have to take over a little bit.
Experiencing some technical difficulties. But, so the new GMO apple, that actually doesn't have any genes that aren't associated with apples. That technology uses something called a microRNA to turn off one of the genes, one of the proteins associated with oxidative browning. So it's all apple. It's all apple genetics, but it's classified as a GMO because we've modified it in a lab and put it on the market.
The lamp on the
overheat
got overheated, so we'll have to just go through stuff and just kind of voice our concern about different things. But maybe we'll bring that thing over.
So so I've got a question. Somebody, bananas, really did not know that. Yeah, actually go to the grocery store, buy into a banana. There's no seeds there. Yeah. There are little black specks that used to be seeds, but modern bananas do not have seeds because we are eating hybrid fruits that are not able to be replanted.
Oh, cool. We got to back up. Rosa's the man. All right, girl.
Hey, shout out to Rosa.
Shout out to Rosa.
She's actually our technical engineer.
So pretty much anything that you eat in a grocery store has been modified to the point where it looks nothing like its natural self from hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. Broccoli used to look like this scraggly little grass plant that I wouldn't eat. If you tried to sell me some broccoli from 1,000 years ago, I'd look at you like crazy.
This is the benefit of selecting, everybody has heard of Mendelian genetic, well, not everybody, but Mendel's pea plants, yellow pea, green pea, get them together, different types of peas.
Make more yellow peas.
Right. Essentially, if you have
some that you realize that there are yellow peas.
Yeah, the entire concept of genetics is very, it's kind of complicated, and I don't think scientists always do a great job at explaining these concepts to people. And that becomes part of the problem, and why there's this fear associated with genetically modified foods.
I think scientists are a little hesitant to be so definitive on anything. It's kind of like, yes, the preponderance of evidence indicates that GMOs are really, 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 really safe. To the point where I would go as a layperson and say, no, they're 100% safe. But as a scientist,
it's very hard to speak with anything in that regard.
Yeah, and that's the thing about science is that you never know what you're going to find 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And I don't want people to use that as a straw man argument to say, oh, well, you just said that.
Nothing is 100% safe. We never make 100% conclusions on almost anything. Something can be factual, something can be true. Are we 100% certain with that? That's the reason why we keep researching things, to make sure that we keep reinforcing the evidence that we find, right? Yeah. So if something changes, we're aware of it. We never almost stop. So things get proven over and over again in science. And it's the same thing with GMO crops.
And, the whole thing about the preponderance of evidence thing is that up until this date, the only people that can actually say that GMOs are unsafe are people that cherry pick the data that they actually want. They see one bad case study, they see one bad this, they see one bad that, and then...
Well, I mean, it's part of the problem. I mean, like, just to mention this one guy named Seralini, who is an Italian scientist who produced these GMO studies associated with rats. He's using Sprague-Dawley rats, which probably doesn't mean anything to most of you, but Sprague-Dawley rats have a higher propensity of developing cancer.
They're inbred to the point where
I mean, the study got retracted, and it pretty much a lot of proponents, or not proponents, but a lot of people that are anti-GMO like to use this study, just like they like to use the anti-vaccine Andrew Wakefield study to pretty much strengthen their argument against GMOs. Both of these studies have been retracted. The scientific community doesn't support these things.
However, the thing is, people outside of the scientific community will latch onto that to try to sell you some BS. And that's kind of like where we're at. I believe fully that, society today wants to find anything that benefits their preconceived belief or on anything, whether the earth is flat, whether vaccines cause autism, whether GMOs are bad or anything. It's because they find one person that reinforces that belief, puts out whatever bullcrap study.
Yeah.
And you can never get rid of it. It's like, I don't know, it's like having a brand new white suit and you get a little bit of dirt on it or a little bit of mud. It's stuck there. You may be able to get it out almost all the way, but if you look close enough, you're going to see it, and then someone's going to be like, "Oh, you're dirty."
Right.
And then it spreads around the room.
It's kind of like this is like confirmation bias at its finest, and it's kind of like an issue here. But I mean, that's why we're here, right? Because I have no financial gain associated.
You're not a big pharma or big agri show?
No, I actually don't get a check from Monsanto to say that GE technology is safe.
Gets a goddamn check from Monsanto. But Monsanto doesn't even want to give checks out to Monsanto employees. Let's be honest.
That's been said to me plenty of times. As far as
So let's talk about transgenic mice real quick, and then we'll get into diabetics. Diabetics depend on GMOs to live. So transgenic animals, like we said, you take either an embryo and you insert a gene into said embryo and insert that into the mouse, and then boom, it has offspring, has your transgenic gene. Whether that's, you want to increase the propensity for a protein, whether that causes cancer, or you're trying to study a system in which, you want to overexpress beta-6 integrin in prostate cancer.
Excuse me, what?
So an integrin is a cell to extracellular matrix cells attached to like a scaffolding, and it's only prevalent in cancer. You don't have beta-6 integrins unless you have cancer or it's a cancerous tissue. So you can make mice get this beta-6 integrin and see what happens biologically, and you can manipulate it, you can target it, you can do different studies like that.
So the reason why we even bring this up as far as mice is concerned is because this is a tool that we use on a regular basis to try to study the inner workings of diseases. We create transgenic models of animals. So it's a very selective, precise process that has been tested for, GMO insulin was produced in the 50s.
Yeah, in bacteria.
So this process has been, don't get me wrong, that does not mean that we're just like, oh, GMO anything? Sure, perfect, let it hit the market. No, these things go through a rigorous review process through scientific institutions, including the FDA. Now, if you are just reluctantly...
Step forward. Literally, when you grow a GMO, you can only grow them in specific facilities that the FDA, USDA, European Society of Agriculture, Japan has one as well. They have to be so airtight that nothing can get in or out unless you designate it to get in or out.
Right.
And you grow them in that facility for at least 5 years.
Right. And so we bring this up because there's maybe a concept or maybe a belief that these things have not been tested, or there hasn't been enough testing associated with the reason why these things hit the market. But the reality is that these things are extremely well tested. They're actually genetically engineered crops to be produced for human consumption, go through, I would say, more rigorous approval processes than pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
So I think the argument that these things haven't been tested enough is pretty much like a propaganda type argument. It's a talking point. It's hard to say, hey, this hasn't been tested enough, when there is a fuck ton of literature out there for you to read that says that these things are safe. And if your argument is that you don't believe the literature, then there's nothing that we can do as scientists to help help you better understand what's going on. We publish papers that are reviewed by peers that try to explain what we do.
But you say peers, like don't they want you to publish that stuff so that they can reinforce their science? Science?
Who, the anti-GMO people?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Anybody.
That's their thing too. Yeah.
But that's a straw man argument. You're using the lack of evidence or a lack of something to point towards your point,
right,
or point towards your side of the argument by saying, oh, well, all scientists, read other scientists' articles. Oh, so that's that they can get big money, government funding.
Again,
whatever.
Does lobbying exist? Is there corruption in every aspect of human existence?
Yes.
Of course. But of course, people can be corrupted with money. But to make the argument that just because something is extremely profitable, that it must inherently be corrupt, organic farming, organic agriculture is a big business. Is a $1 billion industry. Organic agriculture,
actually,
and supplements. Like it's so profitable to grow organic crops. And you know why? Because you walk into Whole Foods and your goddamn milk is $8. Why? Because it came from a cow that's been organically. That shit is not healthier for you. Every study that's on PubMed will let you know. Every large-scale meta-analysis study will tell you that there is no nutritional benefit associated with eating organic versus conventional crops,
so true,
or livestock. So what is the benefit? The benefit is in your prestige.
Yeah,
you are eating non-synthetic pesticide food, and organic farmers use pesticides that.
And let it be known that organic farming has a lower yield, uses more land, is less efficient.
Right.
We'll do an organic farming.
Yeah, we'll do one of those too. It's actually less efficient to grow things.
So human insulin
that suck. All right,
I know that you did diabetes research.
Yeah, so for like a year and a half, I did diabetes research. It's very close to my heart. You could say it's like my first scientific love. All right, so I'm going to answer this question about what is the point of GMOs right after we talk about human insulin.
Yeah, we have papaya. We have
people have type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes means it's also called juvenile diabetes. It means that you're a kid, you have an autoimmune disease, your immune system attacks your pancreas, specifically the beta cells in your pancreas that are the insulin-producing cells. And insulin is a protein that lets your body know, hey, take this sugar and use it. If you don't have insulin, sugar just goes in your bloodstream and you die.
Yep.
If you look post-1920s or something like that, they call it juvenile diabetes because people did not make it out of adolescence. If you got type 1 diabetes in 18-something, you died as a child. Yep. You did not make it. So you didn't grow into adulthood.
Shout out to Dave Rosinski.
Right. Shout out to Chris Faker, who also has type 1 diabetes. He's a great researcher at the University of Miami. Secondly, so type 1, so then people figured out what the problem was. They figured out insulin, then they started giving porcine or pig insulin.
Yep.
And then which fucking sucks because it's not human. And then they figured out, and then they figured out that you can actually make recombinant, meaning human insulin that is produced in bacteria, synthesize it, purify it, and then give it to people. And
so basically, you cut the gene from human insulin, put it into a bacteria, you paste it in there, and the bacteria makes human insulin.
Right, and then you purify it, and then you put it in a vial, and you charge ridiculous amounts of money for it. That part, I'm sorry, I'm upset about because insulin is really fucking expensive, and it shouldn't be because people need it to live.
But see, like an EpiPen.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. I'm on your side, guys. I'm on your side, anti-capitalism people, kind of, sort of. I mean, things shouldn't be so expensive, but I'm also a fan of science. Insulin works. It's great. It's producing bacteria. It's genetic engineering at its finest.
I think there's a lot of deflected hate.
Right, yeah.
Big pharma into, let's just dig them here. Let's dig
I just I'm all for you. Fight the power. Yeah, insulin's fucking expensive, but people need it to live and it works and it's not bad for you.
So back to your question that you got over there. Here's a major reason why GMOs are a success story. Hawaii, there was a virus that was destroying the papaya plant. It was rainbow papaya in particular. And they developed GMO papaya plant that literally developed a resistance to this virus by developing a thicker skin so it wouldn't transfer from plant to plant to plant to plant. So it literally saved an $11 million a year industry in that state. And that doesn't include, the blight-free potato that's in Ireland.
Right.
Or the
anti-acrylamide potato that's currently in a regulatory process trying to get approved.
Nice.
Yeah, because when you fry potatoes, you can actually produce acrylamide. They're trying to knock out the enzymatic pathway that produces the precursor for that.
Ooh.
But yeah, people are fighting it because they don't like GE technology.
There's three sources right up here on our slide: the Genetic Literacy Project, the Hawaiian Tribune, and the New York Times that have covered this story in and out thoroughly. And it's actually the New York Times article from 2014 is like 13 pages long online. Yeah. It's insane.
Also, BT cotton, which is cotton plant that produces BT toxin, right? It allows farmers to use less pesticide.
Yeah.
Or people that are anti-pesticide that are like, oh my God, pesticides are the devil. Now we have plants producing pesticide that will.
Let me go to that chart here. Insecticides way down. Toxicity load way down.
So I will say this though, there is an increase in herbicide use associated with GMO crops, and this is because farmers are fucked up. Glyphosate works. You can spray it on anything. Everything dies. All weeds die and your plant survives, right? So because it's easier to not use combination or not use more practical farming techniques, it's easier to just spray the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
So there's been an increase in that use, and that's kind of a problem that farmers need to address. But the technology is the technology. There are definitely solutions in farming practices and techniques, which is where the conversation should be drawn to, not whether or not we should incorporate this technology.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So
I don't know. There's like over 900 studies examined that says that GMOs are safe. I don't know about you, but I'll take 900 studies over BS. It's over 20 plus scientists and researchers over a 2-year period reviewed animal studies. Like, I don't know about you, but I do know for a fact that the mice in Jefferson eat genetically modified supplemented food. So the little, what's it called? The little kibbles that they eat.
Right.
And a lot of Purina food is GMO. I don't see animals dying left and right or getting any type of abnormalities from that.
Actually, my dog eats all natural wild caught salmon from like Japan or some shit like that. No, I don't actually know if that's what my dog eats or not. But my dog's fucking healthy and great and has a smile on every day. I'm pretty sure she eats regular GMO food. She's fine. Like, she's fucking fine. There's also this myth that increased allergies are associated with GMO foods or something like that.
True.
There's a nauseating amount of. Listen, I'm not in the GMO business. I'm a cancer researcher. But if I fucking was in a GMO business, I would hate my job because the amount of hoops and barrels associated with getting anything approved in the United States associated with genetically modified foods is ridiculous.
Insane.
But you know what? I'm glad it's ridiculous because I want to be safe and I don't want to die. And I don't want some mega company putting some shit on the market that's going to eat my face off.
So let's put it this way. So in 2015, 180 million hectares of genetically modified crops were planted globally, which is about 12% of the world's planted cropland that year.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't think the ecosystem has been destroyed in the past 2 years.
No, it's not.
I think from other reasons the environment's being destroyed.
Like deforestation, which we should definitely have a conversation about, which has nothing to do with genetically engineered foods. But
burning fossil fuels.
Greenpeace, go fucking deal with that shit and stop burning down GMO test crops, please. Thank you.
And then the other aspect is that it has increased the economic output for a lot of different countries. Here's a chart right here behind me. Positive, neutral, negative. Negative is about 15% of any type of meta-analysis. So that includes drought, that includes not getting the same yield as what you would expect from a conventional farming, that includes any type of outside circumstance. And this is what the study said, is that any outside circumstance where it has a negative yield or negative impact on the yield of the crop, they included it because it has to be included.
Right.
But if you look at the total in developing countries, what is it? 75% positive impact from using genetically modified organisms.
I mean,
up to 82%.
There's an interesting thing about this, like why do farmers use genetically modified crops? Because they work.
Yeah.
That's
if the farmer is going to, I would rather go to somebody.
It's a big money thing because it's not great marketing. That's because this thing has a horrible marketing perspective. Yeah. People hate genetically engineered crops. So why is it still profitable? It's profitable because it works.
Yeah, like honestly, if I go into an auto shop and I need brakes, and somebody goes, all right, you can have brakes A or brakes B. Brakes B, they're better. They're great. They're going to last you 70,000 miles. I think I'm going to go with brakes B because I'm going to trust the person that has used it, has put them in, has installed them, and actually has firsthand experience with these things.
First of all, if you make brakes that last 70,000 miles an hour, please call me. I'd like to invest.
Yeah, me too.
That's just outrageous.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
But
pulling out of my butt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm just saying.
But it comes down to the fact that if somebody's telling me something works, doesn't cause X, Y, and Z, and there's data to back it up, like there is, you know, there's only a few references. There's the National Academy of Sciences report on GMOs. The actual big report is a PDF that's 83 pages.
It's actually a great read. I recommend it's free to download.
Yes, it is.
Unlike most scientific studies, which you actually have to pay for, which blows my mind.
It's open access, yeah.
But yeah, you can actually download the National Academy of Sciences report on genetically modified foods. This is a giant report that takes a look at the entire premise of genetically modified foods in humans and animals, pretty much since its inception. And they give you a unbiased, because the National Academy of Sciences doesn't care whether or not GMOs exist or not, because they don't get money from
it. Monsanto's not giving them money? I thought that was the whole big pharma, big agro.
I'm just gonna have to leave it now.
No, that's not how any of this works.
That is, I mean, like I said, there's some level of corruption in every aspect of life. I'm pretty sure that 5th grade kid is paying off the lunch lady to get extra chocolate milk in their elementary school. I'm almost certain that occurs at least in 17% of all elementary schools. But does that mean that the rest of the 83% of elementary schools are having large cafeteria fraud? No, it's not. And these are numbers I'm just throwing out there the same way that people throw out these numbers about genetically engineered crops. Yeah. It's just simply just not there. The amount of data associated with these things being beneficial for us is kind of overwhelming. Now, if you want to get all vegan and sexy with it and, you know, you don't want to hurt animals and, you know,
that's your lifestyle.
That's your lifestyle. That is a personal choice and preference and all this, that, and the third. But documentaries like What the Health on Netflix are...
They're trying to sell you something, period. Like, I'm not here trying to sell you GMOs. I'm telling you the science behind GMOs. I'm giving you an unbiased opinion about it. What the Health is trying to sell you on a lifestyle that, you know, you shouldn't, like, buy.
I mean,
if somebody at the end of something is going, well, you need to eat this, just this, and only this, and tells you as a blanket statement for everybody, no, that's wrong. Like, there's no blanket statement for anybody. Okay, you should work out, you should eat healthy, blah 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 blah.
Wait, I'm gonna disagree with you shortly and say that the blanket statement that if you eat a moderate diet that is diverse with fruits, vegetables, and meats, and you exercise normally, you'll be healthy.
However,
unless you have some genetic predisposition for type 3 diabetes or some shit, and you smoke 5 packs of cigarettes a day or something like that. Listen, if you exercise regularly, whether your food is organic or from goddamn Mars, and you eat a well-balanced diet, they're very, like, you're going to be fine. The risk associated with these plants, and it's just not there.
My grandmother commented.
Shout out to Dave's grandma, by the way.
Non-GMO chicken tastes better in soup.
There's no GMO chickens, unfortunately.
But I don't think so either. But you know, I think the overall point of what we're trying to say is the literature that is out there, the references that we reference, and I referenced the review. It's a peer-reviewed surveys indicate positive impact of commercialized GM crops by Dr. Jeanette E. Carpenter. She literally looks at, does a meta-analysis, and comes to the conclusion that GMOs are safe.
Wait, is she American? Because if she's American, she's in on it.
Oh, Jesus.
There was a study. There's another meta-analysis that just focused on the impact of GM crops. And when I say GM, I mean genetically modified crops on just livestock alone. That was published, I think, in like 2012 or something like that. That's produced by a group of Italian scientists. Same conclusion. So just in case you want to throw it out there and say Americans are in on it, just throwing it out there. This is a worldwide phenomenon, and people like to say, "Hey, well, genetically modified crops are like banned in like a bunch of countries, like 80 countries." So is homosexuality. That is illegal in like some countries,
and it's predicated upon belief,
right? And also our government, as we know, because if you live in America, you understand that you have Donald Trump as your president. That everything isn't necessarily based on facts. So I think that should preface all of the scientific stuff that we talk about here, that laws don't necessarily dictate what should be truthful or not. The scientific data should dictate the decision making here. We argue about climate change in this country.
We argue about whether something should be argued about.
Right, whether or not it exists. We don't argue about what we should do.
No,
we argue about whether or not it exists in this country.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody points out the part that like something is illegal in other countries, I think you should just take that argument with like the smallest grain of salt possible, like beach microscopic sea salt, like just the smallest possible, because it's not a very good place to argue from. But what are some? There's actually GMO trees coming out. I think they're like chestnut trees or something like that. They're produced like one of these New York universities. Because they were ravaged by some fungus or some shit like that, and
I think it was a Chinese beetle.
And something like that. And actually,
bananas. Honestly, they're going to get genetically modified.
Yeah,
as well
because they have an issue too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here's the reason why do we do these things? Because nature is rough. Yeah. Pretty much it's out there to kill you and survive. And that fungus doesn't give a fuck about your crops. It's trying to grow and survive.
It doesn't care about your opinion about genetically modified organisms.
And so it's trying to
be able to eat that, you're going to have to eat a genetically modified organism.
Can we just remember the potato famine?
Yeah.
Like, could you just imagine what would have happened if like they had like genetically modified crops resistant to that? Don't get me wrong. They grew one crop in the entire country, which was dumb. And we haven't learned from them.
Well, technically, potatoes still grew, but at that point in time, they were still exporting potatoes because it was much more endeavors to actually sell them to other people.
Right.
Oh, we're going to make how much money selling it to another country? Oh, we should do that.
Right.
So
I mean, like, definitely, like, growing one crop is definitely not environmentally sound, because if another virus or something, or fungus or beetle or invasive species comes along and what's one? Isn't it like a lionfish or something like that in Florida eating up all the coral reefs or something? I don't know. Invasive species, essentially, an invasive species is something that is new to a land that is taking over that wasn't normally there, that has been brought there. Pretty much that happens all the time because we have a globalized economy. We trade with countries from all over the world, and sometimes bugs and funguses and viruses come over with it.
The stink bug. That came from China. That's an invasive species from China that actually got
face to face
brought
with
over.
stink bugs. So I don't.
Really?
Nah. I try to avoid them. I'm very non-confrontational.
So out in western PA or middle of PA or even the Lehigh Valley, it got brought over by a pallet of wood. It was just on a huge pallet of wood, was infested in said wood, got sold in the country, and now there's
a stink bug
population here.
So can we just make like GMO trees that are anti-stink bug? I don't know what stink bugs do or what they stink up. I don't know. I'm sorry.
If you crush them, they stink. They actually have they have a compound that they produce, and then if you actually kill them, they stink.
So they're like insect skunks.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice adaptation, I guess, if you don't want to get eaten. All right. So I think that's.
So I'm trying to like cover as many bases here. Glyphosate is a very concerning issue for a lot of people. Pretty much you don't have to worry about that, just like you don't have to worry about most pesticide use, because the amount of pesticide that makes it to your table is
negligible.
Yeah, and that's a good word. I'm just looking for a word smaller than nanoscopic. It's to
the point where you can literally lick every single piece of fruit to clean it. And
I actually always lick all my fruit beforehand. That's how I have abs. It's the licking of fruit that keeps this body.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I do. It's the pesticides, bro. You didn't know?
I didn't know that.
Wow. As far as cancer is concerned, cancer rates actually, the onset of cancer, the rate of cancer is actually increased, but cancer survival is increasing. more people get cancer and more people survive cancer.
However, we also live in a population that's aging much more so than other populations.
And the median age for cancer is between the 60s and 70s. Cancer is actually a disease for old people. Most old people do get cancer, except there is a greater population of people getting colon cancer in their like 30s and early 40s, which we don't actually know why. Some people point to diet. You may have something there, but we're investigating it. Don't jump to conclusions. That's how you get fucked up.
Yeah, and it could be processed foods, taking things through, and not processed foods in the means that like GMOs, right? Like using things that aren't necessarily natural, right?
I mean, it's not natural. It's like
no, it's literally eating like crap, being sedentary, not actually moving. You know, it's a multitude of factors. It's a multifaceted problem.
So I have a statement to make because I have a lot of friends that are physicians. We both do. And a lot of times I'm talking to these guys and I'm like, why don't you tell patients that this is bullshit? Like that veganism isn't the greatest thing since insulin. It is since recombinant insulin. Why do you not tell? And they say, listen, if the patient comes to me and they're at a healthier weight and they're eating more fruits and vegetables, I don't necessarily need to crush their dreams because they're doing what I want them to do anything, regardless of what their philosophical belief is.
So the ends justify the means?
Exactly, and that's pretty much what they say a lot of times.
Bull crap.
The problem is eating more fruits and vegetables is good. Everybody should eat more fruits and vegetables. Yeah. But if you eat more fruits and vegetables and decide not to vaccinate your kid because you're on a natural...
you're going to kill your kid.
Yeah, I mean, like, you putting your kid at
A plus B does not equal risk. 22.
Unless
the algebra,
unless the algebra works out.
Oh God, we just went so nerd.
Yeah,
we went so nerd on that. But
shout out to Eric Electron, who is like an awesome physicist who I'm a fan of, who would love that math joke.
All right, guys. So welcome back. I think that was a nice little season 2 introduction.
So I mean, listen. Actually, you guys should please. I'm going to post this video on Instagram, Facebook. Please comment, ask more questions.
Yep, and then we're gonna put it on YouTube. We're gonna put it on the website. We're gonna start hitting that website pretty hard now.
Yeah, we're actually looking for some ideas as far as some posting is concerned. But yeah, we love you guys' questions on this topic, which is super complex and also super controversial. So please hit us with some questions,
and then we'll respond in good time. Next week we're gonna have the science behind climate science, and I know that we're biologists by training.
Trying.
But we're going to actually try to understand the modeling behind climate science and how it actually works and, you know, the statistics behind it. Rather than just going, all right, this chart looks like this, boom. We're going to actually give you the background behind what that chart does and takes into consideration, how the modeling actually works, and, like, the formulas behind it.
I will make this point. Me and Dave last semester took a bioinformatics class, which was ridiculous.
Thank you,
bioinformatics. But one of the things that we learned in that class is pretty much this concept where you can use current data to predict outcomes or patient survival based on the gene expression of certain tumors and things of that sort. This whole climate science,
stratify a whole bunch of different parameters and see, okay, if you have A, B, and C, you're probably going to die quicker than if you only have A and B or A and C or just A, C, or B.
So all this is based on predictive software, and there's some definite overlap associated with this type of predictive software associated with patient outcomes and the way that these software applications are used for climate science. The good thing is these people actually have way more data.
Yeah.
They have massive amounts more data associated with the way that the world works because you don't have to deal with patient compliance and people getting sick. You can actually just observe the world in real time and look at gas and ice glaciers.
It's not just NASA. It's the ESA, Japan, India, China. Climate change is not a Chinese hoax. It's not that China wants to ruin your business.
I was really hoping it was because I have so much money invested in that. Because that's why.
Oh my God, I'm so big Chinese.
Yeah, I'm like Bitcoin all day.
So we're gonna get nice. So we're gonna get into the details about what the actual science is. We're gonna take a little weekend off for Labor Day because nobody really wants to be laborious on Labor Day.
I won't be asleep, so you can send me some questions.
And then we're gonna get a little sexy, I think, with the science behind fitness and exercise episode.
Right. Why is it that people actually are in shape, and how do you get in shape? And when you eat a double cheeseburger, what does your body do with it? It turns it into fuel.
Yeah, it does. You can eat just a cheeseburger and keep your caloric restriction down and still lose weight.
You actually eat Twinkies all day long and actually
but
lose
we'll go
weight.
into
People
like
have
the
done
details about why you shouldn't just eat cheeseburgers to lose weight. And
cardiovascular disease.
And then
said that.
I go on a little vacation from the 16th to the 23rd. So we're going to skip that 16th weekend, 17th, and then come back for alternative medicine on the 24th. And then
My favorite.
October 1st is the title is The Juice, anabolic steroids.
Yeah.
So
Which
we're
is
gonna,
super popular. I know plenty of you users that are like 210 pounds and you're 5'6", and they're like 4% body fat. You're juicing, and we're gonna go over the pros and cons associated with anabolic steroid use,
and give you the reason as why it works and the negative consequences.
how it works, and
the potential negative downsides.
Yeah, the potential negative downsides, because there are not a lot of clinical studies associated with using anabolic steroids for muscle gain.
But all right, everybody, thank you for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week. Good to see us.